week. Anybody have anything that they, hi Dana. Anybody have anything that they want to share? Before we get started? Any questions from the week or wins? Crystal started flying changes for real. Very exciting time in Brooke's life. Yes, I love it.
It's a bit of a follow-up from a couple of weeks ago, but going back to the not using a defensive mindset, the last two lessons I've been trying to just visualize myself as like my best self, my best ability as a rider. And I've been going between two different horses this week, and they've both had one bad day and then a day that we connected better. And I've seen a big change. It's not anywhere close to perfect, but I see my fear subsiding and being able to do things that I haven't been able to do independently in 2 years. So that's a big win for me.
That's so exciting. Congratulations. Good job. And I'm also really happy that you're celebrating that. Good for you. And who decides what's perfect anyway? Remember that, we don't need perfect is when you have a great connection, the horse is understanding what you want, and always room to grow. There's always room to grow. But I think just having that joy and gratefulness in the moment, that's perfect. So super. And, we can get into that, like really go into that maybe next couple of weeks. We'll think about that again. But the values, right? Talking about what we value. And when we are valuing something just because we value something different from somebody else doesn't mean that one of us is right or wrong. Maybe we're concentrating or focusing on something that we think is important, and somebody nearby us doesn't really understand or value that same thing. Their judgment of us, it means nothing, because they aren't valuing the same thing at that time. So they're not aware of what we're working on, the progress we're trying to make, the journey that we are on. So I think that perfect is about that feeling in the moment, that connection, and that journey, and just, every day growing a little bit in that journey. So excellent, Lisa. So happy for you. So good to hear. Anybody else have something that they want to share? Mindset related, riding related. I think that I have been really thinking a lot about mindset these last couple of weeks, and being really focusing on being that learner, and valuing learning, and whether the lessons are coming from the people around me or from the horses, that really valuing growing and learning and not getting stuck. Hello, Yvonne was journaling. I love that. That's okay. Glad to see you here. You have anything that you want to share before we get started? We're just talking about some of our wins this week. And I think also when you're entering into that conversation with the horse, go, Yvonne.
Hi.
Hi.
I was able to ride outside again for the second time this spring, whatever it is, winter. So that was kind of nice. I had to lunge him first because he was a little bit like, whoo, but he was a really good boy. And yeah, it's really good. Like, I really like my lessons. There's a lot of discussion and talking and making sure I understand like the different aids, and yeah, it's very different. It's very good though. I enjoy it.
I'm
But
so glad that that's working for you and that
yeah,
that
it's
it's
good.
moving forward. It's wonderful.
Thanks.
You feel comfortable and he's comfortable, and
Yeah, definitely getting there.
I love it. That's great. That's great. And isn't that fun that you got to ride outside?
I know, finally. Oh, it's so nice to be outside. It was such a sunny day. It wasn't super warm, but the sun was out, so it was nice. And it wasn't windy, so it was good.
And the
Finally.
footing was
Yeah, exactly.
great. All right. We can't complain about anything down here like that. So we're all really lucky.
Right.
So excellent. Congratulations. And anybody else have anything that they want to add before we get going? Or any questions like from last week or anything applying what we're trying to think about? And remember that you can email me questions if you want to during the week, and then I can also cover that in next week's. If something comes up during the week, you find it in your journal or you just jot it down, feel free to email that to me. I'm always happy to really cover questions that you have in your training. So I thought what I'd try to do is just talk a little bit about wrapping a little bit of that up, the reins, the seat, and the legs. I'm not really sure that what I put up on the screen is going to do that totally. You guys are welcome to keep me on track as far as that goes. The last month or so, talking about the understanding of the aids, and I thought we could talk about how they work together and what do we most need to focus on. So again, the levels of learning, what we need to do to what we need to be a good dressage rider. And then I just made these categories. They were kind of in random order. But things that I think that if we focus on them as items in our own knowledge base, then that will help us to move forward cohesively. And if you feel out of this list that something is lacking, then that would be something that you're going to focus on more and bring that up to the same level as all the others. So when we first started talking about the levels of learning, we talked about possibly going to your journal, writing these 8 things down, and then maybe grading yourself on them in your present understanding of them now. So a good position to include developing your seat. And again, they're in a random order. It's not like, this is more important than that, but it's just about, how do we grow in our riding? And we need to grow our position, develop our seat. We do need a level of fitness, which is going to doesn't mean that we need to be strong so we can hold our horses up, but it does mean that we need to know how to breathe. We have a little bit of independent strength, so we can hold ourselves up independently from our horses. And then a bit of relaxation that's going to be in our bodies, because we have this core, because we have the ability to use our legs and relax our legs. We can make a half halt and these kind of things. So a level of fitness is going to be helpful. Understanding of the aids, understanding of the way the horse moves naturally, understanding of the movements, how to ask for them and what they are, feeling and understanding of the horse you have, its present training level, and how it accepts the aids. When your horse doesn't accept the aids, then it doesn't matter how perfect your posture is and how well you're applying the aids. We still need to train your horse. And then someone on the ground that you trust. So far, we are talking about the understanding of the aids. That's what we've spent the last 3 weeks or so discussing, the understanding of the aids. So we're talking about the reins, the seat, and the leg. So the seat, of course, is the most important. So we're going to end up spending a bit tonight about that. And I really want you to feel free to ask questions, because that interaction really helps me to know what you need explained better. Again, this is the quote from the Principles of Riding. The seat should rest in the lowest part of the saddle. The weight of the body should be equally distributed over the two halves of the seat and the inside thigh muscles. So we talked about that before. It can be a misunderstanding where people are talking about that 3-point seat, like the pubic bone and the 2 seat bones, but that is not correct. You're talking about the butt and then the 2 thighs resting on the saddle, not gripping on the saddle. They are part of your seat. The muscles should be free from tension. Any tension in the seat or thigh muscles will cause the rider to lever himself out of the deepest point of the saddle, sit above the horse. So let's do that again. The muscles should be free from tension. Any tension in the seat or thigh muscles will cause the rider to lever himself or herself out of the deepest point of the saddle and sit above the horse. So the upper leg doesn't want to be gripping, and your butt muscles, gluteus maximus, does not want to be squeezing you up out of the saddle. Only if he or she has a balanced, supple seat will the rider's aids be correct. So when we're applying our aids to ask the horse what to do, if our seat is really out of whack, the horse is not going to be able to understand us well. Even experienced riders should never stop working on their seat. This is quoted from the Principles of Riding. This is a book that comes from the German FN, okay? So this is a basic, this part, what we just read about the seat, that is a basic. And we need to be working a little bit on our seat all the time. Somehow we ended up somehow I saved this in a mixed-up way. Okay, so if we're talking again about the seat, we need to develop relaxation before strength. This is a life lesson. We need to develop relaxation before strength. So we relax into this awareness of where we need to put our energy. Okay? This is so important. Also, the same thing applies to the horses. Oh my goodness! Look who's here. Hello, Raquel. How are you? Hello? You must need to unmute on your side because everybody else can hear me. So try looking, let's see. I don't have you muted. So if you can't hear me, you can't hear me what I'm saying right now. Unmute on your side. You're somewhere. So if you guys, if any of you are that do it on the phone, know where that is, type it in for her, would you? If you know where the mute, it might just be on the volume on her phone. Try the volume on the phone. All right. So anyway, let's see, where were we? We were, so with the horses also, you want to be careful that we're not, really making the horses really strong in the work and then without that relaxation and understanding. And then also just in our everyday, right? We need to develop that relaxation in our day and then put the power in to that awareness of what we really want to do, what we want to accomplish, and where we want to grow. And it comes from a place of relaxation, not a place with the does anybody have any suggestions for Raquel with her? So that means she's on the computer then. Can somebody type in where you, because I know you guys have little places for volume 2, right? We can hear you. That's the weird thing, because I can hear you. I can hear her typing. I'm going to mute her. Now you can hear? Oh, okay, perfect. All right, awesome. It's great to see you here. I haven't seen you in so long. I was going to reach out to you actually the other day. I was thinking of you. Well, I'm glad that you're here. Okay. So we need to develop relaxation before strength. We must become aware of our reactions to stress and then teach ourselves. Yes, ma'am. Andrea, did you want to say something? You came and then you left. All right. We must become aware of our reactions to stress and then teach ourselves how to control these reactions, learning to breathe. I'm glad that you're here. It's great. It's great. It's good to see you. And I can't wait for you to be able to start writing again. So our reactions to stress can be mental and physical. And sometimes we don't realize when we're kind of closing up and our mind is getting stressed that our body is responding in a tension way. So we need to learn about those things. And a lot of those reactions are happening in other aspects. We talk about it sometimes if you're driving a car or you're around people that make you uncomfortable, you can feel certain things happening in your body. And then that would be a time to have that awareness and then try to learn to breathe through it, relax those muscles, let the shoulders back down again, let yourself ground yourself in your feet. But if we don't know how, and everybody's different, these are things we need to take responsibility for ourselves and learn about how our body operates and then try to work these things out also independent of riding, because if you can do it independent of riding, it'll start to feel much more natural when you're riding. Having an appropriate horse will help to develop the seat faster and without complications. Awareness is a double-edged sword. Take time, quietly notice the reactions, and slowly replace them with better ones. Do not let your emotions take over when mistakes come up. So this is something that the reason why I say awareness is a double-edged sword is we had that webinar a while back about beginner's luck. And it's that idea that maybe we don't really know how hard it is or what it really takes to ride really well. So we just go out and we just do it and flow with it. And when you know the feeling of a horse bucking when you ask for the canter, your body might think about what if it bucks when I canter, whereas a beginning rider wouldn't even think it was possible, but that the horse is going to buck when it, or what does that feel like, and how would I defend against that? So this also applies when you start to realize something that you're doing in your riding that you want to get rid of, a bad habit. You know, maybe you when you're asking for the flying change, you know, maybe you jump out of the saddle a little bit before you ask. And in normal times, the flying change pretty much happens and the horse accepts that kind of riding. But you want to improve. You want to start doing tempi changes. You want to have the exact timing for the aid of the flying change. So you want to improve your seat. Now, you have this awareness that your seat does something funny before you ask for the change. And every time you do it, you're going to shut yourself down. There's that thing again. I'm doing that again. And you stop riding a little bit because you notice that habit. What you want to do is keep riding. You're going to keep riding even though you notice it. And then you're going to think of what it would feel like in your body if you did it different. And you're going to start to replace that. But you mustn't, you've got to be careful not to overwhelm yourself with noticing that you make this mistake and then letting that occupy your head. Visualize and feel what it would be like if you were doing it better, and then try to ride that into that moment or that timing or that habit, and just slowly get yourself out of it. There's a couple different ways to correct posture mistakes. So one is to overcorrect yourself just a little bit and then settle back into neutral. So for instance, if you ride with your hands too low, you might bring them up past perfect and then let them settle down into where you want them to be. And what that does is it gets a little bit of a range of motion. You do this slowly and you don't do it like that you're disturbing your horse. But if you only bring them up till perfect, they're just going to keep migrating down, right? Yeah, with the dominant side, we talk about that also in independent of riding, where you're going to start doing things, brushing your teeth with your other hand. You're going to try to get dressed in a different order than you do every day. You're going to wash. You're in the shower. Wash yourself the opposite way that you usually do. Hold the soap in the non-dominant hand. Wash the dishes. We were talking about eating with chopsticks with the non-dominant hand. Anything you can do when you're grooming your horses If you're always currying and brushing with the right hand, use the left hand too. So just swap things around, not only when you're riding. Because when you're riding and you're trying to think about that, then there's too much concentration, too much brain work, and you're not going to let yourself get in the feeling of it. When you do it in your everyday practices, then your body is going to accept it much better and you won't have so much brain work going on. So when we're making, so there are two ways that we're going to think about correcting riding posture mistakes. One is to overcorrect and then settle in. So you take your body away from perfect too much and then drop down into where you want it to be and just keep talking your body into liking that new place. So if we're talking about the hands being too low, gently and not hurting doing too much with the horse's mouth, you might find that bend in the elbow, bend in the wrist, shrugging the shoulders, bring the hands a little bit up. Usually hands that are too low are going to be fixed in the elbow. So you're going to bend the elbow a little extra and then let the hands settle down. If you're talking about the legs, again, it's all about the joints. So if one leg is too far back, repeatedly, whether it's the inside or the outside, it stays too far back, find those joints, find your ankle, find your knee, find your hip, find that place where it's a little bit locked and open it up and relax it. And also visualizing how you want that body part to look. Think about it in your mind's eye. What is it when it's going well? What does it look like? What does it feel like? If I was watching somebody ride and their legs were in the correct position, what would that look like? And visualize it, and then your body will follow your mind. Your body will follow that picture that you're creating in your mind's eye. Make time every week to prioritize seat work. We all need to do that. Work on your body outside of riding time to improve suppleness and awareness. So that's what we were just talking about, Raquel, is that you're going to do some awareness work every day, independent from your riding, and do some exercising or stretching or Tai Chi or yoga or something, because that will also help your body to be working both sides more fluently. Have fun. The best way to find relaxation is through joy and gratitude, Payton. Brisk walking helps a lot. And brisk walking, you also want to think about both feet and how are they hitting the ground. That's an awesome question, Raquel. So are you really walking on your feet, each one equal? How does your ankle feel? How does your knee feel? How does your hip feel? Very often, one side of your body is going to walk a little different than the other. So if you can work on those joints in the walk, it's awesome for fitness, actually can be really good for stretching too. And think about using both limbs equally. Are you taking the same size steps, the same speed steps? Are both feet coming off the ground the same distance? That kind of thing. Very, very helpful. Good. Have fun. The best way to find relaxation is through joy and gratitude, Payton. Safety is imperative. Learn the safety seat so that you have a way to stay in the saddle when things start to go wrong. Safety seat is heels down, feet secure in the stirrups, knees into the knee block. This way, the horse does not feel any gripping or pushing by accident. Keep your balance over the center of gravity. And if the horse is moving fast, turn with one rein. And if it's bucking, pull its head up. And if it's rearing, do not add leg or seat. Hold the mane and wait until it stops, because you want to be very careful with a horse that's jumping up, that you're not actually pulling it off balance. Okay. Now, hopefully none of these things are happening, but what I want to bring up the safety seat is so that while you're working on your seat and you're doing that stuff, you can be honestly doing that. But you know that if the horse does something all of a sudden, you have that ability to put those heels down, knee in the knee block, and turn with one rein as necessary. Okay. But you don't have to think about grabbing it all the time. You just do it when you need it. And the rest of the time, you're putting the horse on your aids and you're riding with that relaxed seat. Otherwise, we end up gripping in, and we can't work on the seat because we're gripping all the time, worrying. So now we're going to just talk a little bit about the basics. Does anybody have any question about these things? So this is just, we were talking about up here. We're talking about the seat, the dressage seat, and the principles of riding. And now here we're just talking about how do we find that balance in our riding to develop our bodies into the riding that we want them to be doing. And now we are going to talk a little bit about the basics. And the basics in this sense are talking about the application of the aids. So that's where we are in the levels of learning, and the understanding of how they properly affect the horse. So I thought that I put the definitions, but I did not. Okay. So, really, I didn't? Here we go. Basic. Something that is fundamental, an essential ingredient, principle, or procedure. Okay. So we're talking about basics. And then what is a principle, a fundamental or primary truth from which others are derived? So when we're talking about these basic principles of riding, it's a fundamental primary truth. And all the rest of the stuff is coming from this place. And this is so important to understand, because it's very easy to get out at the end of the branch too far away from the trunk. And what we want to always stay close to the trunk, stay close to the basics. And when we start to get off course, then things are going to go wrong. And then we start fixing details instead of basics. And when we stay close to the trunk, when we stay close to these primary truths, then when things start to go wrong, we're not going to work on details. We're going to work on basics. And this is super, super important. And it can happen a lot in competition by accident, that things are mentioned in tests, in training with trainers that are looking for a look instead of a feeling, that we end up out at the end of that branch working on details, and we don't understand the basic cause or the basic reason for something that's happening in the horse. What's the most important thing? What's the big rock that I could fix, that then all these little details would actually disappear or get better? So the basics in this sense are talking about the application of the aids and the understanding of how they properly affect the horse. These are principles. These are truths. Okay. We must be able to know where the center of gravity is and become comfortable finding this place to sit. We must be sitting over the horse's center of gravity. Okay? The horse has to let us sit there, and we have to be comfortable sitting there. And when the horse tries to take us out of that place, we have to learn how to robicize, athleticize, supple the horse, and get him letting us back in that place. So if we have a horse that's a little bit uncomfortable or is using its body in an uneven way, we have to get that horse loosened up and suppled up and relaxed so that it lets us sit where we're meant to be sitting, that it's not pushing us off to the side or off to the front, or even that we have to sit too far back, so that we're riding against the reins. We must learn to follow the natural movement of the horse. So really, the development of our riding is dependent on us learning to follow the natural movement of the horse. Before we can apply the aids correctly and use our bodies correctly, we really need to learn how to follow the natural movement of the horse. And this takes time and practice, and it can also get lost and found again, or lost and then improved depending on the horses that we ride. If we're riding a horse that's a little bit hotter or a little bit more feisty, we might get some tension in our body and we might lose a little bit track of that. If we're riding a really lazy horse that doesn't offer a lot, we also might be pushing in the wrong moments and things like that because the horse just feels like it won't go. So we need to learn to follow that natural movement, and we need to revisit that all the time. The aids are applied while following the movement of the horse. So as we become better riders and more skilled, we are not going to disturb the movement of the horse, the natural movement of the horse, to apply the aid, but it's actually going to happen in harmony with the way the horse moves. We see a lot of times what's the easiest gait for people to ruin is the walk, because it does not have any period of suspension. So there's no override to what the rider is doing to the horse. A lot of times the walks get distorted through riding. A horse that can naturally have a good walk may end up getting distorted in the walk because why? The back stops moving, then it becomes a leg mover, and that means that it's pacing. Okay? So the walk is one of the easiest gaits to ruin, because in the trot, it's actually jumping up off the ground, two legs landing on the ground, the other two, there's a period of suspension in between. So the horse can override some of the things that the riders are doing at the wrong time. If a basic aid is not understood, time must be spent to reinstall that aid. So if our horses become confused and they stop when we tell them to go, or they go when we tell them to stop, or they go right when we tell them to go left, we have to stop the training, whatever stuff we're doing, and come back and have that conversation and teach them again what to do. Okay? This can happen all along in the training. Oftentimes it can happen when we start training flying changes or piaffe passage or anything really, where a little tension comes in and the horse gets scared and then starts running through the half halts, but then it's not engaged enough. So then the rider keeps pushing and kicking, and then the horse is getting, they get off of the basic aid. So then we have to come back, find that relaxation, get that understanding and that conversation going again, and then move back. If we lose the relaxation when introducing new movements, we have to go back. We have to go back. And then we might not get back to that new movement that day. And that's okay. But if the basic aid is not understood, time must be spent to reinstall that aid. After an aid is applied, return to neutral. Aids can be repeated if not fully understood or acted on. They should not just be held longer. They can be repeated. The basic aids are the seats, including your weight, and then the legs and the reins. The reins are often used the most, but need to be used the least. This does not mean that the horse should ignore them. Horses need to be taught to respond correctly on the reins. Because of this, the horse can hear the seat and legs. Blocking in the reins will prevent the proper understanding of the seat and leg. So it's important that we remember that the rein aids really should not be the primary aid when we're riding. However, in an effort to not use our reins too much, that doesn't mean we ignore that the horse is ignoring us. Okay? So, super important that we think about the obedience on the leg. We think about the horse staying with our seat. We think about that we don't want to be overusing our hands all the time, and the horse should never think of the reins as balance. But we need to make the horse sensitive enough on the rein so that the leg and seat can be heard. Okay? Blocking in the reins will prevent proper understanding of the leg and seat. So then that brings us back to Losgelassenheit, looseness, a contented, happy expression, rhythmically swinging in the back, closed but not immobile mouth, tail swinging, relaxed breathing rhythm. So this is how our dressage horses want to be going as much of the time as possible. What that means is that the reins are being let through the body of the horse, and the legs and the seat are being let through the body of the horse. So I heard an awesome quote by David Hunt the other day, and that is that when we pick up the reins, think of it that we are picking up the mind of the horse. So are we having that conversation where we're explaining to our horses what the aids mean? Or do we get defensive when we use the leg or when we use the reins, that the horses are going to go against it and then forget to teach them? And this is so important. When we picking up the reins, he said, think of it that you're picking up the horse's mind, and then have that conversation with them. Durchlässigkeit, suppleness, permeability, to let through. Okay, so that's that bouncing back from the rein, that the horse takes the bit, accepts the bit, but they understand to hold their own head up. They understand to place the hind legs a little bit better underneath the center of gravity, underneath the body, so that they can stay supple through the back and through the neck and bounce themselves from the rein back into the hind leg, from the hind leg, received back through to the reins. To let through, permeability. And these are words that, one word that it takes us a paragraph in English to describe, but this is how important these things are to the classical training. They have one word that means looseness, a contented, happy expression, rhythmically swinging back, closed but not immobile mouth, tail swinging, relaxed breathing rhythm. These are the things we need to look for in our horses to know that they are accepting us and understanding us. And then the permeability, and I love that permeability, to let through, to let the aids through. So they're not blocking. Mental understanding creates relaxation. Something that is repeatable is understood. So think about that. If I make an aid and get a result, I want to reward my horse so that the next time I make that aid, he tries harder to do that again, Peyton. Even if it's not perfect, Lisa, we want to have that question. Would you please do this? Answer, yes, but I'm not totally sure, but I think this is it. Reward, yes, that's in the right direction. Or ask again, you didn't come with the right answer, and then the reward. But the more we can ask, answer, reward, the more the horse mentally is going to keep trying for us. And the more they mentally try, then the better their body gets at being able to do that job for us. So we really want to think about that in the training. And no matter how inexperienced or experienced you are, if you're the one sitting on your horse, you're the one training it. So an aid that is acted on with a direct result and does not have to be manipulated is mentally understood. An aid that is acted on with a direct result. So that would mean that I ask my horse to turn right. I sit a little bit in the right seat bone, and I lead a little bit with my right rein. I keep my outside rein closed, my outside leg, but I'm leading. That horse should understand to follow the rein. If I get active resistance first, so the horse turns away from where I want to go, and then I manipulate it, and then I finally get it going where I want it to go, that's not an aid that's understood. Now, when you get it doing what you want, you need to come with the reward, but we need to understand that we still have some work to do to get the horse to mentally understand what to do. The same, if I want to halt, I sit with my back a little bit strong. I make a little bit the fist with my outside rein. My horse should think of waiting. Depending on the level of the horse is going to determine physically how the horse is waiting, but it should think of waiting. If I get weight in the rein, not a weight. So if I get weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, weight in the rein, that's not a horse that mentally understands what the rein aid is. If I get a waiting, W-A-I-T, that's a horse that understands what I'm talking about. I can put from that half halt whatever I want in. I can continue with the transition downward. I can make just a half halt. I can make smaller steps, slower steps. The horse understands mentally. But if I get heaviness in the rein, that means that the horse is thinking about my hands as balance, and it does not understand it. Then I would need to manipulate the aid. That's not a direct result. I hope that makes sense. You guys are welcome to ask questions if this is confusing. So our words of the night are patience, relaxation, awareness, and connection. Returning to the basics is not backwards, it's forward. The more we try to manipulate or force the horses, the less understanding there will be. All movements are created from these basic aids. So when they do not work, nothing else is working. So ask me questions. Does anybody have any questions about what we just covered tonight? All the way from the beginning, because you can ask questions about anything. So when we're talking about that, then we're talking about the rein aids, asking the horse to stop or to turn or to get supple. But what I'm talking about is, so if you're asking your horse to turn and you get resistance, and so the horse, it often happens, I want to turn right. I use a leading right rein, and the horse feels a little bit of pressure in the rein, and it pulls left. So now it's going left, but I'm asking it to go right. So I must not start doing all kind of other things to get the right feeling in the right rein. In the moment, I might have to half halt on the outside rein, kick it with the left leg, whatever, but I need to teach it better about allowing the inside rein through. In the same way, if I use my aid to say stop, and the horse first goes faster and then goes slower, it's not understanding the reins 100% mentally. Okay? So that same aid that you used that got the wrong answer has to be used to get the right answer and then the reward. Okay? That's it. Actually a good question, Raquel. The same aid. So if you use your leg to ask the horse to go forward and the horse doesn't go forward, you can use another forward aid, for instance, the spurs or the whip, but you can't use the reins. And you'll often see people, the horse doesn't go forward, use the reins. So we want to be careful about that. If we want the horse to understand the leg, we have to explain what the leg means. We ask, we get the result, we reward. We ask, we get the result, we reward. Sometimes it can happen in the middle of the training. The horse gets tired or we confuse it, and all of a sudden the legs don't get the horse going anymore. We have to go back and have that conversation. We can't just start doing something else. Okay? The same aid that you use needs to be the one that you teach them about if they start to get mixed up. Does that make sense? This is really important. Good, Raquel. Okay, you guys are quiet. If anybody wants to send me questions that I can't, I think there should be questions to this because I think this was kind of a lot of information. But if you think about it and you have a question, please feel free to email And I can send all the notes along if you want them. And that way you can review them, and that might help to know if something comes up. All right. All right, you guys. Well, if nobody has any questions right now, I will let us close. But thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Crystal, is that you, both of you? Because I have you in here twice. Are they both you? Or is that somebody else asking me to send the notes?
I was asking as well.
You're welcome, Meg. Hey, Lisa.
Hi. I was asking about the notes as well, Nancy. It is a lot to process, and I kind of want to think about it.
Absolutely. I will email them to you 100%. It is a lot. This is a lot. We cover this, like we kind of go over it in a little bit different. Oh, there's Olivia. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. We go over these in a little bit. It's only, okay, you and Peyton. Okay, perfect. It's, we kind of touch on these things in a little bit different ways. But tonight, trying to bring that whole last month together, I think it is a lot of information all at one time. So I'll send everybody the notes, and then please feel free, if during the week while you're riding, or you're trying to bring some awareness to some aspect, please feel free to send me questions if you want. Whoa! Oh yes. Okay, I have to remember what last week was, but yes, I'll do that one too, Yvonne. All right, you guys. And do think about one thing for the journaling is taking those levels of learning and kind of giving yourself a little bit of a grade for each one. Some of the things can be worked on independent of your riding time, which is fun. So, then that can be something that fills your time. If I wish I could, work a little bit more on my writing and understanding some of the aids from the books or from videos, understanding what the movements all look like and from where the movements can be really helpful. And then that'll be a little bit more in the forefront of your mind when you're riding. And also that body awareness and stretching and stuff is really great too. Aids focusing on reins, which I need to do less of. Yeah, it was the reins. You're absolutely right. Okay. How to hold the reins and all that stuff. Okay, perfect. Yep, I'll send you that one too. Very good, you guys. Have a great night. Thank you very much. Great to see you. Thank you for coming. Lisa, Raquel, fun to see you back. Crystal, Olivia, I'm sorry I missed you when you came in. Meg is already gone. Good night. Good night. Peyton.